So welcome everybody to our workshop on grad school. And my name is Michelle Flint. I am the Director of Career Development here at Clark. I use she, her pronouns, and I am one of the Social Sciences Career Advisor. Just for fun, I put my college degrees and my first couple of jobs on there because you might notice that I am not working in any of the professions for which I am formally trained right now. I'm on a second career. And I share this with you just to let you know that while choosing a grad school is important, it is still possible to pivot and grow after you make that choice and after you go to grad school. So I thought I'd share that with you. Also with us today is Julianne Murphy, and we're very pleased to have you with us. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you so much for having me here today, along with Andres, who couldn't make it. He's actually flying back to graduate school right now, but we are both members of the Graduates of the Last Decade Gold Alumni Council, and we're really excited to be here today to offer you another resource as a point of contact as you navigate through the graduate school application process. I'm a fourth year at Northwestern studying health and biomedical informatics, and Andres, I believe he's a third year studying psychology at Cambridge.
Awesome, fabulous. And as you can see from the slide, both of these alumni will be more than happy to talk to you after the presentation and beyond. And so I'm just really curious just to get to know you all a little bit. If you would, please put your class year and your majors, if you have declared, in the chat. And just so we can see who's here. And if you are interested in putting one or two questions that you have in the chat, please go ahead and do that too. Otherwise, you can ask questions at a later time. Awesome, thank you. We have a nice mix of majors and class years here today. Fantastic. Okay, so moving on, here is our agenda for today. We're going to talk about, should I go to grad school, how to choose one, how to pay for it, the application timeline, and some things that you'll need, and some additional resources. And I want to point out that this is really an overview workshop. We're going to be giving you a very broad picture of things that we really would like you to be thinking about as you are looking at grad school. So this is really just the start of a conversation, which any of your career advisors or Julianne are happy to continue with you. And then the other thing that I want to let you know is that if you are pre-health or pre-law, there are definitely pieces of this workshop that will be helpful for you. And also you'll have some unique needs that you definitely need to check out on the very well built out pre-health and pre-law advising pages. And as you may know, there are faculty advisors for those programs. So if you are pre-health or pre-law or think you might want to be, we advise you to check those out as well. Okay, so the first question is, should I go to grad school? Yes. All right, and there are definitely good reasons to go. And here's an overview of them, right? So you realize that the credentials and experience will help you reach your career goals. It might be the price of entry for your field. You may not be able to actually enter your field without an advanced degree or a license. If you're a senior, you might still feel like you want to wait out the pandemic economy. That's becoming less and less true, but it might still be true for your field. You might realize you can earn a lot more within your profession if you have an advanced degree, and you want to add to your major or your current skills to be more competitive or be more unique so that you can really stand out when you go to apply for jobs. On the other hand, here are some reasons to go that are really not so good. And I've heard all of these in my advising over the years. So just check this out. So some folks go to grad school just to put off thinking about life after Clark. Some folks say, well, I just like history. I just like chemistry. I want to just hang out in that space for a while. I've heard people say, I'm going to go into teaching because it's my fallback career. Many students will say it's what going into profession X is what my family has always expected me to do. And while that is a totally real situation, it may not mean you want to do that thing. Some folks will say, I just want to earn as much as possible. And we can absolutely support that, but are you doing it in a field you actually enjoy? And then another reason might be, well, some of my friends did X and they like it, so I think I'll do that too, right? So what I'd like you to do is just take a moment and just privately to yourself, look at these two columns and say, well, where am I, right? Where do I fall? And if you fall on the right side in those not so great reasons to go, that's okay, right? I know that I was there when I was a junior in college. And so our goal is to support you so we can move you over into the left-hand side so you know why you're going and you feel really good about why you're going. So when you're thinking about, should I go to grad school, we really encourage you to begin with the end in mind, to look past that. What do you want to be doing for your career or your first career? What do you want to be doing in your 20s? And then working backwards to determine, okay, what, if any, grad school program will really help me to get there, right? And if you're choosing a grad school, you should be able to answer these questions as apply to you. And if you can't yet, then we suggest that you pause and do a little career exploration first, right? If you're not sure what you want to do for work or as a profession in your 20s and 30s, let's pause and explore that first, right? And so if you find that that's where you're at, no problem. We have a lot of build out resources for those. I'm going to send you all this slide deck with these hyperlinks, and here are some resources to help you explore careers and test drive careers and make a good choice, right? And obviously your both your career advisors and your alumni network can help you with that. And we'll talk more about that later. For any questions so far? Okay. Now, part of beginning with the end in mind might be looking at the earning potential of specific careers, right? So you might be a bio major and say, well, do I need an advanced degree? And it might come down to, well, how much do you want to earn, right? Short and long term. So if you have a biology degree, you can get a job with a bachelor's degree. You can become a biological technician, microbiologist, wildlife biologist, or health communication specialist, and that's all good. If you really want to amp up your earning potential now or later and become a biomedical engineer, a biochemist, a physician, a physician's assistant, or even just advance your pay in some of those other fields, then an advanced degree at some point might be a good choice for you. And so researching the earning potential of the careers that interest you might be part of that decision-making process. And these are just some of the resources to do that. And yes, the question was, will we be able to access these slides afterwards? I am going to send this to you because I have a ton of hyperlinks in here. So you will have all of this. Don't need to worry about writing it all down, which is why I want to make sure you have your last name for finding you on the registration list. You are welcome. Okay, so the second question related to should I go is, well, should I go now, meaning right after you graduate from Clark, or should I work first? We get that question a lot. And again, I'm going to give you some points to consider so you can make the right choice for you. So going right after Clark is probably a good idea if you know why you're going. If you're on track with your timeline, meaning application deadlines and so forth. If you have the grades that you need and the test scores you need, if you in fact need test scores right now. And if you have some sort of real life work experience, even if it's just internships, to have tested out that thing you're interested in. You might want to wait if you're still considering what your career is going to be. You might need some time to just work and test some options. It's possible that your profession or your grad school requires more work experience. You may need to take some prerequisites that Clark doesn't offer. So for example, if you're interested in occupational therapy, you're going to need to take anatomy and physiology, and we just don't have that here. You may need to work on your grades or your test scores, and you may just need a break. And all those are totally valid. So you want to look here and say, all right, where am I? If you're a junior or senior in the room, where am I? And I guess my message is that either choice can be a perfectly fine choice as long as you're doing something productive with that time you take off, right? And we can talk more about that. Okay, so we are about to go on to another topic. So I want to first ask Julianne, do you have anything to add to anything I've said so far?
I'm all set so far. I'm just going to add mine and Andres' email addresses to the chat in case anyone wants to reach out.
Awesome, thank you. And I'll pull up your intro slide at the end as well again. Other folks in the room, do you have any questions so far? Okay, great. So the next topic is choosing the right program. And I want to start off with some pro tips. Folks don't realize that this process takes time. You want to allow 9 to 12 months to really choose, investigate schools, get ready, apply, right? In a perfect world, you're starting this in the spring of your junior year. Or if you're taking a gap year, that's fine. Start it whenever you need to. Another tip is focus on the program more than the school, right? And let me give you an example of that. So my previous career was outdoor education. Part of that is adventure therapy. And some of the really best schools for adventure therapy are Prescott College in Arizona, University of New Hampshire, and Macalester College. And you may not have heard of any of them, but as it turns out, some of the rock stars of that profession are at those schools. And if you're inside that profession, you have a degree from those places, it really says a lot, and it's a real boost, even though it's not Harvard or Yale or Princeton or Cornell or whatever, right? So you want to really look at the program that has the same research interests as your own or offers the specialty that you're interested in, as well as schools that just have broad name brand recognition. Having said that, you do want to consider how the networking potential of the alumni of that school. Some might have better networks set up than others, and that will be a real boost. And also consider your personal requirements. Do you want to live at home or live where you currently live to save money? Where do you want to live after you finish? Do you want to go to grad school in the state where you eventually want to live and build up your network, et cetera, right? So those are some things to consider. And in terms of finding those schools, here are some resources for you. Obviously, if you're considering the Clark's fifth year program, which about a third of our students eventually do choose, then you can look at those choices. Peterson's and US News are sort of broad, something for everybody, very long-standing places to start. If you really want to niche down, talk to people in your network, especially alumni, who are already in those professions you're interested in. And Clark Connect is a really great place to find alumni who are very interested in talking to you professionally. And in fact, I'm going to get out of this slide deck for a second. Actually, let me start by saying in the chat, if you have been on Clark Connect before for any reason at all, would you just put yes in the chat? I want to know how many people already know what I'm talking about. Okay, we have some yeses, not everybody. So I'm going to go there briefly, if you don't mind. Oh, one more yes. That is awesome. Okay, so this is so valuable. And I want to go here. Okay, so here's Clark Connect. And for those of you who may be unfamiliar, it is basically LinkedIn for Clarkies. It is an in-house platform where over 4,000 alumni so far have opted in to be a resource for you all for anything you might need. And you can search, there's a job board as well, but you can search alumni. So if we search for our friend Julianne, there is Julianne's profile. I can open that up. And so if you, there's some search functions here. And if Julianne's either Northwestern or professional path was of interest of you, you could click message and say, hey, I'm a Clark Junior. I'm really interested in Northwestern, or I'm really interested in your field. Would you be willing to jump on Zoom with me for 30 minutes just so I can pick your brain and talk about it? And they're most likely going to say yes, because that is why they are here. So I wanted to just share that with you. And you can just search through folks. LinkedIn is also a resource. Everyone on Clark Connect is sort of a warm lead, right? So it's a great place to start. And you can find it by searching for it on Clark's website or through our website. And we're going to go back to our PowerPoint. Okay. So as I was saying, these are some resources to find programs. Faculty, alumni, other folks you may know. We have some grad programs come to the Career Connection Center career fairs, so check those out. I highly recommend going to conferences in your chosen field, because grad schools will have booths there, either in person or virtual, and you can talk to those folks. And then also grad schools will have open houses. Julianne, anything to add about finding a great grad school?
I guess I'd also thank you for the little Clark Connect intro. I haven't seen it from that side. But I would say too, that's something I didn't do when I was applying, but something I've since had experience with is just people like yourselves cold call, like finding me on LinkedIn and asking me if they could talk to me about my program, what it's like living in Chicago, and kind of some of those, lower hanging fruits, easier questions that you're not going to send to like a professor at the school or an administrator. But something that I'm always happy to answer. And yeah, I encourage you to do that as well when you're starting to narrow down your list.
Awesome. Okay. Now, if you're considering a school, if you're considering a program at a school you've possibly never heard of, you want to make sure that it's fully accredited and legit, especially if you're considering a completely online remote program. And there are more and more of those masters and PhDs that are completely remote. And there are plenty of them that are completely accredited and completely legitimate. And so I'm just going to put that on your radar. If you haven't heard of them, there are ways to check them out and make sure they're fine. And your career advisor can help you with that. But I'm just going to leave this just as a resource you can fall back on. Okay. So another question I get a lot is, how many schools should I apply to? There's no one number for everyone. A lot of experts say about 4 to 6 per cycle. But really, the important thing is only apply to as many as you have time to create an outstanding application for, right? Don't blow off this application. And if you have time, in your situation to apply to 10 or 12 and you can afford the application fees for those, then, more power to you. Go ahead and do that. But don't phone it in, because you will not compete against the other folks who are doing their best. And if you want to try to figure out if a program is really competitive, there are a couple of different ways to do that. There are rankings. You can look at the stats from that particular program and see how your GPA or whatever compares. Some schools you can just tell by reputation how competitive there are. And that way you can apply to schools that are really a stretch for you, as well as schools you think, yeah, I'll probably get in. So that's some broad advice there. And per cycle means the application cycle is usually annually for most programs. So for a lot of grad programs, you're going to be applying in the fall for admission the following August or September. There are some programs, especially in the master's level, where you might be able to apply. They might have 2 application cycles per year, where you might be able to apply to get in for a spring start, a January start. Usually it's per year. Thank you for asking. Grad school fees. We don't have a fund for that, I'm sorry to say, but there are resources online for waiving your fees based on your financial status, and I can email those out. I should put that in this slide deck, but it's just getting kind of long. Fee support. So I can email some resources for that. Thank you for asking that question. And then I have 2 of Julianne's 3 tips here on this slide about applying outside the US. You want to go over these?
Sure. And I just wanted to add on the fee waivers. One thing I did was emailed the programs that I was applying to. Usually there's like a program administrator or something. And I would ask just simply, hi, I'm really interested in your program. Do you have a process for waiving the application fee? And then it's a really easy, like they'll say yes, and they'll tell you about it more, or they'll say, no, we don't. And it's a great like introduction to then be able to ask more questions, try to create a relationship and to get to know them better if it's a program you're really interested in. And then, so Andres goes to school in Cambridge in the UK, and I was also fortunate to apply to graduate schools abroad as well. And we just wanted to point out 2 key differences that we saw with the American versus particularly UK application processes. So firstly, for the research degrees in the UK, you typically have to find an advisor before you apply. And then you're also going to submit a full research proposal. So it's way more about the content area that you're going to be studying, the actual research you're going to be doing, versus I think with the American applications, it's way more about yourself, right? Like, what are your aspirations? Why are you coming to this program? Why is this a good fit? Is kind of a little bit just more about you. So we wanted to point this out, and then again, just offer ourselves as an extra set of eyes, even to, look at those drafts of those emails. If you're going to send to a professor, see if you have research interests, anything like that. I know Andres and I would be really happy to help.
Awesome, thank you. And we have one more tip from Julianne, which is coming later in the deck. We are about to talk about paying for grad school. So before we change topics, are there any other questions from the group right now? Okay, cool. So paying for grad school. There are several different things to consider. Here's an overview. Obviously, Clark's ADP, if it's the right program for you, is a great way to get a master's degree for either no cost or low cost. And I know that's going to be a path for many folks here. You can choose a program that offers scholarships, and just a pro tip, PhD programs are much more likely in the US to offer scholarships than master's degrees, although some masters do, you have to check. There are fellowships, we're going to talk about that, where you apply and like Fulbright or Rhodes scholarships, and they will pay for your grad school. You can seek out private scholarships, and I'm going to show that in a second. You can work for an employer that will pay for your grad school. So for example, my spouse works for FedEx, and they have a really great program where they will pay for someone to go to school at any level, one class at a time, and it's just part of the employee benefits package, right? You can work for a university that offers tuition in the benefits package. A lot of folks that work at Clark get a free degree while they're here. You can work full-time and pay as you go. That's an option for some programs. If you do borrow, try to be conservative in your borrowing. So pro tips. Paying for grad school, strive to minimize debt. This is very important because if you come out of grad school with a lot of debt, it can actually make it impossible for you to accept some of those entry-level positions because you won't be earning enough to pay your debt. So with that, understand the earning potential of your chosen career when considering how much debt makes sense, right? Just run the numbers. As a general broad brush statement in the US, if for PhD programs, if they want you, you won't have to pay for it, right? So you go with the place that's going to give you that money. Master's programs are generally big income for universities, therefore there's not many scholarships in-house, but you can check. And if a master's outside of Clark is where you're headed, you can be prepared to pull together funding from multiple sources if you need to. So if you're applying for mostly PhD programs in the US and they want to offer you funding, it's generally not free money. unless you've applied for a fellowship that will pay for it, generally it's the graduate equivalent of work studies. So they will offer you a teaching assistantship where you're teaching classes, or a research assistantship, or some other work at a different department. And for that, they will either offer you free tuition or a living stipend or whatever. So in the US, if you're hoping to get one of those, apply. Don't wait till the end. Don't wait till the deadline to apply. Apply early, because if they're making decisions as they go, you want to apply before that pot of money runs out. Do Clark students receive any tuition off the new MFA through Becker or Clark? I don't think so at this time. I don't think so. That may change, and I can ask if that's on. I can ask some folks if that's in the works, but right now I don't believe so. Good question though. Okay, and here is Julianne's third tip about applying in the UK. So I'll hand it back to you.
Great, thanks. So that last piece, after the UK being a lot more about the research project and your fit with the research mentor, typically your funding is also separate from admissions. So you're going to be applying for funding alongside your application of admission, and they're obviously both going to be evaluated separately. So yeah, we said it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. Andre certainly could answer more questions about his funding is structured, but it's just another thing to think about, that in the US, you're not going to apply for applications per se in the same way.
Right. Thank you. And we had a really good question in the chat. What are the pros and cons between a PhD and a master's program, right? So to really drill down for you, I'd want to know, I want to talk to you in an advising session about what professions and programs you're interested in. As a broad statement, with a master's program, you're done sooner and you can get going sooner if that's what you want to do. A PhD is, 3 to 5 years. It's a much bigger time commitment. I have a master's and I'm partway to another master's. Interestingly enough, I never wanted a PhD because I enjoy synthesizing things from different places. I never wanted to drill down very in great detail in one narrow topic. And that's what you end up doing with a PhD is you get really deep into one topic. So if you're okay with the time commitment, and if you're okay, if that interests you, a PhD might be a good fit for you. In some professions, your earning potential is just fine with the master's program. And you really don't need to go for the PhD. And data science and computer science is a perfect example of that. You can earn 6 figures with a master's degree, easily pay off whatever student debt you have. And if you don't want to continue your schooling, you really don't need to. And if you consider yourself a practitioner and you just want to get going, that might be another reason. So that's a very broad answer. And we want to look at your, yes. And we want to look at your situation. MA and MS, so Master of Arts versus Master in Science, it really depends on the field. Most fields are offer one versus the other. There not too many where you can choose. Masters in Science will be more either science related or more data related. So over in our School of Management, some of our programs are Masters in Science, and you're going to do a lot more quantitative stuff. EdD is also an option, absolutely. So there are doctorate programs that are not a Doctor of Philosophy, but a doctor, there's a PsyD, there's an EdD, there are some variations there at the doctorate level. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, so for fellowships not connected to your particular school or program, there's places you can look. I have here just some of them. I want to point out Clark's Office of Prestigious Fellowships is sole purpose is to help you win those prestigious awards like the Fulbright and the Goldwater and the Rhodes Scholarship, things like that, where there's only a few handed out nationwide every year. And it's a really great resource for you. Other private clearinghouses will have them broken out by category, even by affinity groups. So if you're BIPOC or first generation or Native American or whatever you might be, there might be things specifically for you that you can research. And I'll just leave these right here for you to look into in your own time. And here are some great little articles, not too long, about paying, in real life, how I paid for grad school kind of things. Okay, so we're going to move on to application timeline. Julianne, anything you want to add?
Nope, all set here.
Cool. Any other questions at this point in the chat or out loud? And we'll take questions at the end too, of course. Okay, application timelines. So I want to open by saying this is just a template. Your unique path can vary from this, but if you just want just sort of a broad overview, here it is. So if you're a junior and you want to go to grad school right after you graduate from Clark, this is your ideal timeline. So by spring of junior year, you really know what you want to do, and you've really started to identify schools. If you need the GRE or some other test, then you've started to study for it. Because fall of senior year is when you are applying at the latest. Okay, if you want to take a gap year, or if you're a senior and you're just now considering this, it's okay. It's actually still possible to apply for grad schools as a senior now, because those deadlines generally haven't happened yet, but you may want to take a year or two and just investigate your options. And that's totally fine. If in your application essay or your interview, if you have one, if you can talk about what you've been doing with that year, if it's been meaningful in some way, then it's totally fine to take the time off. So what do I mean by meaningful? Here are some options. You might be working to build up your experience, might be a paid internship, structured volunteer position, you might start a business. Just something to say, yeah, I was really doing something, either giving back to the community or building up my credentials. And again, we can talk more about that. Okay, so some broad guidelines for what you need to apply. Here's a broad checklist, and this is on our grad school page. I have standardized tests on here. Clark's ADP does not need them. You just need a certain GPA. Right now, a lot of schools are waiving this standardized test requirement, and to a certain extent, that is here to stay, which is a great thing. But I just want to make sure you check with the specific programs you're interested in. Don't make any assumptions, right? You're going to need recommendation letters. You're going to need one or more essays. You're going to need official transcripts, your resume, or if you're in research, curriculum vitae, and potentially a portfolio of your work. If you do need to do test prep, know which ones you want or need. These are just a couple of them here. There are resources for free test prep, including LinkedIn Learning, which you as a student have a subscription to on your Clark U portal. But that's just one of many. And your basic essay may or may not have a prompt, but it's basically going to be looking for these topics. And this, again, is in the US. Why grad school? Why this program in particular? What have you done that prepares you to do well? And what are you going to do with this degree, right? They want to know that you're going to stick it out and you know why you're going to school. And in a couple of slides, I have some links for really compelling ways to open and close your essays too. But this is the basic content that you want to cover. It should absolutely be your best writing. You want to revise it several times and have other people look at it. You might have the opportunity to also write a second statement that's sort of a personal diversity statement. And that is a different kind of essay. It's often shorter, but and there's often a prompt question for it. But in a nutshell, it's an opportunity to talk about you and your background and experiences, how they shaped you, what challenges you've overcome, and how how that makes you the candidate you are today, right? What you want to do and how that shapes your perspective and your lens and your interests. And I have a source here for a really nice, long document for that, if that applies to you. And then here are some essay links, and here are some, there's all kinds of folks who can help you with that, writing great essays. And in fact, Jessica Bain-Robert, who is the director of that Office of Prestigious Fellowships, is holding a workshop in October on writing personal statements. There's no pre-sign-up. You can just show up, and so you'll have this link. And so even if you're a first year or a sophomore, if you just want to get an insight into this and meet her, because she's a really great resource, you can go to this workshop. Letters of recommendation, they're often by faculty. They don't all have to be. They can be from an internship supervisor or someone else who really knows you well. And the number that you need, it varies. We have a page for faculty where we coach them through writing a really great letter of recommendation, especially if they're new to Clark. So you can point them to that page if you would like to. And some final thoughts about everything, and then I'm going to talk about how to follow us and just take your questions. So final thoughts for this entire workshop. Go to grad school if it makes sense for where you're headed after that. Look for ways to minimize the cost. Choose a program, not just a school. Use your network at all stages of the process. Allow plenty of time for the process. Gap year is okay. Pre-health and pre-law, use those resources, and don't forget our grad school page. And if you want to make an appointment with myself or any of the other advisors, you go in Handshake and you click on Visit Your Career Center. You want to click us, the Career Connection Center, not School of Management. Then click on this appointments tile, and then you can just select the appointment that's right for you. And then the other plug I want to make is that we have a very robust team of folks, including students, putting out daily content, including not just our upcoming events, but career tips. So if you follow us on social, you'll be getting those every day. And also I want to make sure that you are reading our newsletter, because it has not only all of our events, but also incredible links and tips. And if you haven't, it comes out basically every other Monday. And if you haven't noticed one, go into your clutter or your junk folders and see if you can, rescue those out. But those are really great resources for you. And once again, there's Julianne and Andres, and you can find them both on Clark Connect or email them. And with that is all the information that I wanted to share. We have plenty of time, so I wonder what other questions does anybody have? Oh, actually, before I have one other question for everybody, but let me take questions first. What questions do you have?
I've been beginning the process of getting into and looking into grad schools. But I'm also a senior, and I'm kind of acknowledging the fact that I'm going to be taking a gap year, but I don't really know where to live or where to direct myself for my gap year if I don't know where to go for where I'm going to go to grad school.
Right.
So if you have any tips on kind of where to focus that.
Yeah, for sure. And was this Haley or?
Yes, this is.
Yes. Okay. And just to give me some context, what are your majors again, Haley?
I am majoring in women's and gender studies and minoring in international development, social health. I'm mostly focusing on reproductive health care and advocacy.
Awesome. Fantastic. So if we met, I would first ask, what do you want to what do you want to do for a career, right? What do you want to be doing in your 20s? If you knew the answer to that, I would say, okay, use that gap year to work in that field somewhere at the entry level so that you can be building up your credentials and have an even stronger application essay. If you don't know the answer to that question, I'd say, okay, let's take fall semester to do the career exploration process and see if we can narrow it down to a couple of really strong choices for, okay, I'm interested in this broad field, and here are some job titles that really interest me, even though I'm going to need an advanced degree to get there. Because I always love to see your gap year be working towards whatever that 5-10-year goal is in some way. I would also ask you if you have any personal requirements, like I want to live at home, or I want to live with my partner, or whatever it might be, which may be geographic limiters for you. Because if you know, broadly speaking, what you want to do in your 20s and early 30s, then we can be looking for jobs or post-graduation internships that are moving you in that direction. And it could be anywhere in the US or the world. Or as an ID major, it might be a year of service. Maybe you are considering Teach for America, Peace Corps, whatever it is. And then using that time, once we figure that out, then let's say, okay, I know where I'm headed in the next 10 years. What grad school programs make sense? So while that wasn't a specific answer to your question, that's the process I would walk you through. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, awesome. And you're welcome to come and talk with me about it. Or Elizabeth, who is the humanities side of the house for your women's studies. And we had a question. Yes, can we schedule an appointment with you when starting the process? Yes, you can schedule an appointment at any time, at any phase in your process. Generally, you can schedule with me. Generally, we set you up by major. So all the arts and humanities folks work with Elizabeth. All the STEM folks work with Rachel, who's on our call today. All the econ management folks work with Angela, and so forth, right? If you're a double major, you can work with either of your assigned, or really you can just work with the person you feel comfortable with. That's cool too. But yes, we're happy to work with you at any stage in the process. So thank you for asking. Also, I want to point out that our advisors will meet with you one-on-one for 12 months after you graduate too. So you can take advantage of that and come back and see us.